Great sex, I believe, starts with good morning.
Heart to heart, lead joy, stepping into the Zoom. Big love, bold words. It's the elephant in the room.
Good day, beautiful people. It's another installation of the Elephant in the Room show, Heart to Heart with Lee Joy. And we are joined today with the beautiful Christa Coetzee. I'm very excited to have a conversation with you about all things about connection. And so welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for the opportunity. I always love talking about connection. So it's absolutely up my alley. Thank you for the time and the opportunity. It's always lovely to have a conversation with you.
Awesome. So what got you into being like my currency being connection? I'm assuming there may have been some disconnection in your life that made space for you to question or want connection or see the value of connection.
Absolutely. And I won't go into all the details because there's so many things about that. But really I was born into a family. I really had the privilege to be brought up by two parents that actually had all the skills, theoretically, to be the best parents and really show us what connection looked like. My dad was a reverend and my mom a social worker. And from very young, I was also born being really interested about why people do what they do and what makes them tick. So I used to run to my mom from young to say, Mom, this is the problem at school, this friend of mine, what can I say? And then I'll go back. So I was actually counseling and coaching from when I was very young. And everything was really safe and privileged until one day it wasn't. And I actually arrived at school. My dad, being a reverend, was in the news, and a friend of mine at school told me that my parents were getting divorced. And I was completely shocked. And that made me realize, but where was the disconnect already coming from? How was I not informed what was happening in my own home? And then they ended up getting divorced. But I'm also one of the statistics that they got remarried. So I'm really lucky in that, because what I saw and witnessed and lived with was how they actually put their marriage back together again. And what they had to learn, what caused them to become disconnected, and how they had to work to become connected. And that really sparked a fuel in me, that it's so possible to have fulfilling relationships. But if we do not put in the work, if we do not really, they individually had to go and work with themselves. What did they bring in that contributed to this relationship that became disconnected? And that was an ongoing process. And then I went on and studied social work, and then I went into psychology and sexology. And it really just gave me a personal experience of what it's all about, and then the theory behind that to bring it all together so that I can do the work today that I am. So life really happened for me.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, how you've turned there's another lady I interviewed called Yoko van Dam, and she's the kintsugi queen. And if I listen to what you're saying, it's taking the gold out of the broken pieces and creating something stronger and more formidable from that. So I see the picture that's what your mom and dad must have done, was to take the brokenness and look at how can we forge something greater and bigger than ourselves by looking at ourselves individually and then together. That's really beautiful. So let's dive in, right? My listeners know that I don't prep too much for these interviews, because I want them to be really about what's in the room today and what's sitting, at the surface for you today, and to do a deep dive into what really matters around connection. And you spoke about sexology, and I've been watching The Polygamist lately, and it's like such an eye-opening discussion about sexuality and relationship, and so let's go there. Like, in order to have great sex, what kind of connection does a couple need to have?
Great sex, I believe, starts with good morning. And great sex starts also with when I can look at myself in the mirror and I connect with myself first. And I think that's often not given enough attention, because we really cannot expect to be in a sexual relationship completely full-heartedly if I'm expecting everything from the other person, that they need to make me tick, if I don't even know what makes me tick. So great sex is really about, and when I work with my coaching clients and my relationship clients, it's the majority of the time when we start working with sexual concerns, it's really to find a way of how do we treat one another? How do we make one another feel? How do I feel in this relationship? How do I feel inside my own skin? And if we start focusing on that, it's actually amazing how it bubbles from the inside. And the sexual is just an expression of what really bubbles from the inside. What is the inside? What are the foundations of the relationship? How safe do I feel with this person? How comfortable do I feel with this person? How confident do I feel in my own skin? And then to find a way to navigate, because there's always two people. And that's the part I find when I work with sexual concerns, it's always fascinating to me to say, you know what, we don't have sexual problems when we are not in a relationship. Because I know exactly what I feel. I know exactly what my needs are. I know exactly when I'm about to climax and when not. But all of a sudden, I'm expecting the other person to know everything, and it's not quite happening at the same time. And that's where the frustration comes in. It's really about navigating what both parties feel and finding a way to weave it in. So great sex really starts with, I believe, with a great connection with myself and my own body, and having the ability to communicate that, to express that to my partner, and my partner having the safety and the confidence to express theirs. And we hear one another, we feel one another, we connect, not only on a physical, but we connect on a spiritual, emotional, psychological, physical level. That's where great sex really happens.
Mm-hmm. Thinking so you're speaking about being able to connect to ourselves, and when we're so disconnected from ourselves, it's very hard to be connected to another. Or one overemphasizes the connection to the other in the what's the word I'm looking for? In the absence of connection with self. And I agree with you. I think that there needs to be a good balance between connection with self and other. And I think there are different types of things that distract us from connection with each other. And you know, I work with sex addicts, and porn is a huge distraction within a relationship, distraction from self and distraction from partner. Okay, so now if we talk about, and I feel like I'm going into sex with you today, which I'm sure is fine with you.
That's fine.
So how if a couple feel awkward about sharing what their sexual desires are, and I don't mean fantasies as in role playing, but more so around actual physical, like foreplay or whatever, how does one create an environment where both feel calm and safe to be able to share that kind of content or feeling?
I think one of the things that we often disregard, you were talking about the noise, the distractions. And there's often the noise and the distractions are often coming from belief systems that's being imparted on us. If I think about just society that's prepped in the and I think we're still a bit stuck in that, of where there's certain gender expectations, there's certain gender roles that we need to play. There's also what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. When I work with women, I often have to hear where they are so scared to express what they're feeling because they were never, ever allowed to even talk about that, never, ever allowed to even experience and explore that. If they had done that, they would have been considered sluts. They would have been considered bad girls. So the good girl syndrome brings right back into the relationship as well, and where men often have been allowed to be, or I almost think in society we raise them as a little bit of exhibitionists. They are allowed. It's so cute when a little boy runs around without nappies and it's just, you can just see the little bums. But the moment the little girl does that, there's already immediately cover up. So if we have all of this shame that comes with us, that's one of the aspects that we're talking about, then it becomes difficult to express that because you have to jump through the hoops in your own head, your own belief systems, your own ideas, before you can even express that. And your question is, where do we start? How do we create that space where we can start having that conversation? I think safety and trust and no judgment is crucial. If the relationship is riddled with blaming one another, with finding fault with one another, with that there's not enough kindness, that there's always a feeling of attack or defense, how in the world are we going to have the hard, honest conversations when I have to become vulnerable in front of you to really express what my fantasies and my desires and my needs are? And so for me, it's always important before we start addressing the elephant in the room, which is, what do you really think about? What do you really want? We need to create a solid foundation of safety. That there's really a feeling of, I can say this and it says something about me and who I am and what I desire. And you can say what you desire without the other person feeling that I am now being put on the spot, or maybe I wasn't good enough. And then all of those shame and blame and guilt starts creeping in. We really need to have a space where it's safe enough to talk about these things. I have a beautiful couple at the moment that I'm working with, and they've been together, married 30 years, and they're now finding their way back to one another. And it's so beautiful every time to hear that they say, Christa, for the first time we can talk about things we couldn't talk about for 30 years. Without the other one closing up. And what we've been working on is really just having a safe space of talking to one another, hearing one another, feeling loved, feeling seen, feeling heard, feeling appreciated. So we are actually engaged with one another. That's actually already making love. So we're already having sex by the way that we speak to one another, by the way that we feel. So we need to have that safe space where we can talk about that. But we have to realize we have to jump through the hoops in our own heads. And then I need the other part. And when I hear this person and they hear me, they need to realize that this is really putting something vulnerable in front of you, and please don't crush it.
You know, to be sensitive, right? To be sensitive to one's vulnerability or somebody else being vulnerable. I love the story of the 30-year-old marriage finding a way to connect. I'm 52 and I had 2 marriages, and I'm discovering myself in a way that I've never known myself sexually, and I in the sense that that whole good girl viewpoint or belief system has in some ways really hindered my experience of myself. And even in voicing my very vanilla ideas, I would like to add that, like, I find that really hard. And I think it's not necessarily the safety or blame or the guilt from my partner so much as what it is about the shame and guilt that I feel about myself in voicing those. I'm going to share also quite vulnerably, because that's what I do on the show, is that I was when I was younger, and my thought is, if I say no, then somebody's going to take advantage anyway. So, and I know that within sexuality, yes and no are equally powerful. So it's been an interesting journey for me of healing. I feel nauseous just talking about this in such an open forum, but I feel like maybe somebody can learn from that and seek your help, and go and heal that part in themselves. Because it's time, to reclaim our sexuality. People may have taken parts of us away, but if we don't do the healing, they get to keep those parts. Whereas when we do the healing, we get to reclaim parts of ourselves that were taken away. So, thank you for the work that you do. I work with sex addicts in that space, and it's been a very profound journey to help people reclaim who they are.
It's the powerful work that you do is also because we've been there. We've realized what was taken away. But sometimes situations take things away from us. Sometimes wanting to be the good girl and wanting to impress, we take certain things away from ourselves. And reclaiming that, really stepping into your own power. And that is good sex, best sex with yourself.
For sure. And
because
I'm 52
that's when you make
now.
love to yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And at 52, I mean, you're talking about a couple that have been married for 30 years. They must be around now 50, 60 years old, where, I've heard many people say that are in healthy relationships that the sex only gets better the longer you know each other. People think, how you met, you like jumping into bed every 5 minutes and having sex. Okay, great. The frequency of sex was probably more when you first met each other, but the quality of sex is better if you have an open, loving relationship with yourself and an open, loving relationship with your partner that can develop and grow.
Absolutely. You're touching, and I think it's often because there's so much of our own pain that we're trying to protect and we're trying to shield, and that takes away making sex quite serious. And when we're younger, sex is way too serious. We should be having fun. We should be enjoying. And if we don't do that, we are missing the intensity of that connection, because laughter is where we're really having fun. We're playing. I love it when my clients always, when they're a bit nervous to use the word sex, then they'll just say to me, they'll say to one another, are we going to play? And I love that. Why must sex be so serious? And a lot of this pressure and expectation takes away the joy of that connection, where I can really just, in the moment, giggle and say, oh my word, what is going on here? I had a beautiful young couple that came to me, and she was really experiencing a lot of painful sex. And one of the things that she also could not use any lubrication, external lubrication, because she started getting bladder infections.
Oh, shame. That's horrid.
And they came to me, and she wanted to do the right thing, and she wanted to be the best partner for him, and he wanted, and they were disappointed all the time. And then the one day I looked at them and I said, okay, do you have yogurt with natural probiotics in it? And they looked at me and I said, okay, now you're going to go and use that as the lubrication, and let's see how it goes. They came back, both of them in stitches, laughing. They said, Christa, that was the messiest sex we've ever had in our life. We had to put towels down on the bed. And she looked at me and she said, no, I didn't have pain, not once.
Oh, amazing. I've got goosebumps.
Because they were laughing. They were having fun. We removed all the tension, removed all the expectations, and they could connect in a playful way.
That's nice. I love that. Thank you. Thank you. I think it's so beautiful what you're saying, because if I think of when we were children and we were playing doctor, not necessarily gynae, but that in some ways we were shamed for it, right? Because you were naughty. You weren't allowed to play doctor. And then you became a young woman and it was like no sex before marriage, because that's like you're a slut then. Then you get married and it's like, oh my gosh, I've got to have children. And that's like a serious thing about having children. And, and I think now, and I hope that the younger women that watch this can, and men for that matter, can look at sexuality and sharing ourselves with each other, in a sexual, that it can be fun, because I think it's important for our souls, and never mind all the oxytocin and all those things that get released that are so healthy for us. But yeah, just to have a look at it is fun. I think that's a very powerful way to connect a couple as well. So if you had to talk about the elephant in the room within marriages today, what would it be? Or long-term relationships today, what would it be?
Sure. I think there's a couple. The one that immediately comes to mind for me is there's been so much pressure and so much evolving happening when we go and grow into different phases and we did not discuss it with one another as and when it happened. There was a certain expectation. One of the things is going into a relationship is we do not talk enough about who I am, what my needs are, how I see us, where are we going. We wing it. We ride on the wave of oxytocin, and I'm going to get married and I have the house and the picket fence and all the children. But nobody talks about when the children come, how are we going to navigate it? Because what's happened is more and more pressure is being loaded. There's noise. There's more and more pressure that's being loaded on women to step into the workplace where they have to navigate their role as a wife and as a housewife and as a business wife. Husbands need to go out and do what they need to do at work, go and earn the money, be the head of the house, as what they often expected of themselves and their partners expected of them. And then when they come home, all of a sudden they have to help with the house chores and they have to help with the children. And one of the things that we do and have neglected as a society is how does this, what a society expects of us, how does that translate into our intimate relationships? Because all of a sudden I'm coming home, I'm tired, I have to run around doing the kids, the homework, doing the house chores, and the partners are not communicating about what it is that we need to do on a daily basis. Yes, we want to be connected, but remember that there's noise that actually takes away the intention on the relationship. And then what we force the sexual relationship. And that comes often with resentment, frustration, anxiety, stress. And we don't talk about what are we really expecting of one another. Where are you? Where are you? What is it that you need? And how do we connect? Love is not the problem. Life is. And if we're not going to talk about how we're going to navigate life so that we remain a priority, we are going to step into dangerous zones. We are going to get into muddy water. And that is where the elephant in the room sits, as we don't talk and we don't hear what the other one needs as the shifts happen. We expect the other one to know what's in my mind. And when they don't, we resent them. We get frustrated. We stop talking. And then there is a deep desire to connect, but I want to connect in a way that I'm being heard as well. So when we go into relationships, and I think this is, for me, such a powerful shift that needs to happen, is, and you said it earlier, is we need to reclaim what has been taken away from us on whatever level. And we need to step into our power, but never to overpower the other one. We need to meet one another in our power, because then we can play. You mentioned earlier is when we go and we play as children, the moment that one becomes bossy, immediately the other say, I don't want to play with you anymore. But the moment that there's boundaries, and that's why children play in games. They will say it's like, today we're playing Doctor Doctor, or today we're playing we're going to the shop and you are the cashier and I'm going to buy some. And we know what is expected. What is that? That's boundaries. They clearly define what the game will look like. And the moment that somebody steps out of and do not agree or disrespect the boundaries, then we say, no, now we change the game. And we have, as adults, have unlearned to do that. 6, boundaries. Very clear. We need to feel safe as we're going to play, and we're going to play where both of us are having fun. A relationship, the boundaries. We're going to play life, and we're going to have fun, and we're in this as a team together. So we really need to start breaking it down to that part of how are we going to play life and have fun.
I'm going to introduce you to Ndlovu. So Ndlovu is my co-host. He was created by by a friend, and Bruce Wade, who I interviewed on this channel before. So he created an agent or a chatbot whose name is Ndlovu, and Ndlovu is elephant it's Zulu for elephant, and he talks about baobab trees and roots and connection. So I would love, what question would you like to ask Ndlovu about connection?
What question do I want to ask about connection? I would like to ask him is who in a relationship, if we talk in a relationship, and we
romantic
talk
relationship.
A romantic relationship.
Yeah.
And we're talking heteronormative.
Heteronormative.
Which one?
Heteronormative, yeah.
Which one has the strongest desire for connection? I would like to hear if he splits it.
Let's see what he says. Okay, he's thinking. It says on Lorvu is thinking. Okay. Okay. All right. Lee Joy, the question is a trap the ancestors knew well. Women speak of wanting more emotional intimacy, and men report greater fear of being alone. But desire for connection is not the same as the skill to hold it, Lee Joy. Both hunger, but they name the hunger differently. The woman may call it closeness, the man may call it need. Neither is stronger, Lee Joy, but both are deep. It is the language of hunger that differs, not the hunger itself. Differs, not the hunger itself.
Absolutely. Love it. Love it. And I think that's one of the things is we use different words, but we mean the same things.
Lovely.
And if we can find the words, and that's one of the things that I often ask my couples to go in, and I put in here heteronormative just to make it a little bit easier, but it actually doesn't matter who's in the relationship. We need to learn the language of the other one. What words are they using? What are they actually saying to you? Not what's underlying. Words are purely there to make it easier for us to communicate. But words are the biggest traps. I've had one couple, and the woman said, if a husband says to her in the morning, "We need to talk," she goes into a frenzy and starts panicking. And then I said, "But what?" He says, "But I didn't mean it like that. I just mean can we have an opportunity to sit down and check in with one another?" And she said, "But why didn't you say it that way?" They both have the same need. It's just how we come out with it, the words. And those are triggers. So in relationships, we need to be mindful of what are trigger words. What does the other one really mean? And if we can just have a conversation, when you say that, what do you really mean? And then they will say, "Oh, okay, that's exactly how I feel too." And do not fall into the trap. So, Gloria, I love it. It's spot on, because the desire for connection is mutual.
For sure.
The depth is mutual.
Christa, thank you so much. I feel like we could speak for hours. I mean, the first chat we had, we went on like over an hour, and we were like, damn, we should have recorded this.
I know. I love having conversations with you.
Oh, thank you, Christa. Thank you for joining me today and speaking openly and deeply about what it means to be fully human and to traverse the difficult terrain of communication on all these different levels with self and with others, so that we can create, I think you and I both have a similar purpose in helping to build connected, authentic, loving communities, and we do that one couple at a time. So yeah, thank you very much for joining us today. I appreciate you, and I appreciate the work you're doing. And yeah, may you go from strength to strength. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's absolutely, I love it to meet people that feel the passion like I do, and do the work in the way you do it. Because that's also, we each have our own different strengths and our own different messages and ways. But you and I definitely, I feel, connect on the fundamental values. And that is such a privilege to meet you and to walk this earth plane with you.
Amazing. Listeners and viewers, thank you for joining us today. You'll be able to see all of Christa's details and things that she's involved with in the show notes. I would like to invite you to have a look at our membership lounge as well, and to see where in our membership tiers or which of the membership tiers best suit your needs. It's been such a joy to put this podcast together. My team and I are having such fun. And the people that have been joining us so far have just been so beautiful. So again, Christa, thank you for your time and your passion. And God bless you all. Have a beautiful day.
Big talk, real talk. There's an elephant in the room. Heart to heart with Lee Joy. Saying what we're scared to say. Oh yeah. Laugh a little, cry.